All right, hello, and welcome to Do-It-Yourself Tech Academy. No, today's not a cooking lesson, but there's something about chopping garlic and trailing off, or I should say, chopping off trailing spaces at the end of a line in Excel. So that's what today's lesson's about. It's about removing all your trailing spaces in Excel. But I just had to align it with chopping garlic because there's a similarity. All right, I get it. Okay, so let's do it. All right, so here we go. I'm going to show you today how to remove trailing spaces, or better known as extra spaces at the end of your line, or this is also known as trimming white space. White spaces, basically spaces, you might say. I don't know. Anyway, that's kind of like it. All right, so here's the example. So I got two lines here. Okay, it's we have this name John James, which both of them appear to be the same length, but in fact they are not. So here's how you can first detect whether there's extra spaces in your line. So if I click on the bottom one, John James here, and I go to the top line here, okay, I just click on it, you'll see that the cursor goes directly after the S in James, which means it's waiting for the next input that you want to insert in the line there. All right. However, if I go to the cell above it, which is called John James also, which looks seemingly the same, and I click on the line of the formula bar there, okay, you'll see that the cursor is a few spaces over to the right, waiting for some input, which means this is where the end of the line is. Now I'm waiting for you to input some extra stuff. Okay, so that's one way to tell. Another way to tell, but if you have lots of lines, that may be a little more difficult to just go through every line and check it out. But so what you can do here also is you can use the formula called len for length. Okay, so if you use the equal sign, that tells Excel that you're using a formula, and you use this length option here, or formula, and it tells you the length of a particular cell. So we're going to say this tells you, give me the length of what's contained in cell E8 and put it into the cell where I am now, which is F8. So I hit return and I get 10. So it tells me that the length of John James is really 10. If you count it, it actually is 10. One, right, count from J to S is actually 10. All right? So, but if you do it above, in the above example, you use the length here, okay, and you say, give me the length of what's contained in E7, which is right there, and you hit return, it says there's 15. So they both seemingly have the same length, but it's not necessarily true. All right, so that's that. So how do you get rid of trailing spaces or extra spaces at the end? Well, what you do is you use a formula called trim, and it's done the same way, and you say, Excel, okay, to Excel, I'm going to use a formula, and I'm going to use this formula called trim. All right, and you say, I want to trim what's in cell E7, okay, and place it in cell G7, which is where I am now. And you hit return, and it says, okay, it says John James, but it looks seemingly the same, right? However, if we do the experiment here and say equals the length, give me the length what's contained in G7, you will see that it's actually 10. So this John James is the same length as this, which has no spaces in it. And you can't quite do the experiment here because it's a formula that's being interpreted. So it doesn't. So what shows up in the formula bar is the formula itself. So, but anyway, this is how you check out that the length is in fact the same as without spaces, and that's how you trim off spaces from your line or your string, as you call it. All right. Okay, let's try a practical application. So I created a name, address, and phone list here. And what I did is I created these names, and the numbers just makes it unique, the numbers next to the names here. And I created 3 spaces next to each one of these names. I appended it or added it on to the back. And if you click on the formula bar up here where I am, you'll see that there are in fact spaces up there. All right. So in any one of these, you'll see that there are spaces. Okay, good. So the idea here is you want to remove the spaces from the last name, the trailing spaces, or the extra spaces as they say, all right? So what I would do here is I would click on the cell next to it, okay, and insert a cell, okay? And then you use the trim formula. Tell Excel that you're using the trim formula. The equal sign tells you're using a formula, and you say trim, all right? And you click on this cell D2 to the left here, and that tells it you want to trim or get rid of all the spaces before and after, it does actually, of cell D2 and put the result in E2. So if you hit return here, you'll see that the result is, you can't necessarily see without the spaces, but I'll show you that it actually is true. And so you want to do it for all these things here. You're not going to kind of type in the formula for each one of them. That's a little slow. So you see this little box here in the corner? We're going to take that box and we're going to left mouse click and we're going to drag it all the way down to the bottom of the list. And you'll see Excel copied the formula all the way down, but it applied it to the data next to the cell. So you'll see it's 26, 27. You'll see that's true there, all right? So now these are the names that are all without spaces in the beginning or the end, all right? So now you want to copy these over to this list here. But you can't just copy it straightforward because it'll copy the formula, and you don't want to copy the formula. You want to copy the value that the formula interpreted. So what you need to do is you do the copy right down to the bottom here. All right. So what you do is you pull that list back down again so everything is highlighted, and you do a control C for copy. All right. And that's what happens. And then you move over into the cell where you want to copy to, and you do a right mouse click and you do paste special. And then you tell it you want to copy just the values, because not the formulas, because if you do all, it'll copy the formulas and everything. You don't want to do that. You just want to copy the values that the formula incorporated, okay? So here we go. So boom. And now you got the values there, right? So just to give you an idea, so if I click on this, you'll see in the formulas bar here that it is in fact a formula. So, all right, but if you click over here, you'll see that it's actually a value, and I click on the formula bar and you'll see that there are no spaces now next to it, okay? So now what you could do is you can get rid of this column. Just do a right mouse click on the column E, just E, right mouse click and delete. Boom. And there you go. And now you have a clean column of names with no trailing spaces. All right? So there you go. So there's a practical application of how to delete and remove the extra spaces at the end of your list. All right? Great. Hope you got something out of this. See you soon.